The story is about a well-off money manager named in outrageous cases he could black out or kick the bucket. In his home. His own PCP, Dr. O, is his just certain, who has attempted a few days to find a cure, but has no profit. Hence, one day, he tells Min-kyu to acknowledge his lone life and gives him a savvy that utilizations tones to screen his unfavorably susceptible condition. Blue is ordinary, yellow addresses a gentle response, orange implies that Min-kyu's aviation routes are shutting and red implies that he will bite the dust in minutes, a seriousness that he's never experienced. One day, a virtuoso researcher named Teacher Hong contacts Min-kyu. He uncovers that he that is fit for aiding of Min-kyu with his house chores. And since she is certainly not a human, she won't hurt any him. The cost to this robot is 100 million won. Min-kyu feels like this is a scam. But out of curiosity, he goes to the lab to meet his teacher Hong. And when he arrives at there, he is invited by a robot that very closely resembles a lovely lady. She presents herself as a He-3, an exceptionally progressed simulated intelligence robot made by teacher Hong. Min-kyu is dazed by her appearance, and when he contacts her, there is no unusual change in him. Energized by this new disclosure, he promptly communicates his longing to purchase a He-3, and even puts supports in the undertaking. But, first he needs to test the robot tomorrow. Tragically that evening at the lab, everything goes horribly wrong. One of teacher Hong's colleagues cumbersomely spills a bead of pop in a He-3 center processor, causing it to have a short out. The teacher and the remainder of the group are crushed as it might require a few hours to fix the robot. What's more, since there can be cancelled if a He-3 isn't conveyed to Min-kyu. The next day, Professor Wang is compelled to consider another arrangement. He recollects his ex, Jia, who is uncovered to be the model of the robot a He-3 since Wang constructed the robot precisely like her. He goes to meet her. The two of them have an off-kilter get-together, and understanding that Jia is encountering monetary trouble, he offers her a compensation of 10 million won assuming that she consents to camouflage herself as a He-3 for one day. Jia doesn't have any desire to help out for her ex, however since she is needing cash, she consents to the proposition. Following this, teacher Wang takes Jia to his lab and shows her to the robot. Then, at that point, every one of the researchers group up and assist her mask with enjoying a He-3. They fit a shield in her body, put another hairpiece in her mind, and, surprisingly, 5 her contact focal points. Then focal points will really work as cameras, which will assist the teacher and his group with observing everything through the genuine He-3 robot. They also can send instructions, which GRWLL get from her focal point as messages or recordings. The following day, Jia is shipped off Min-kyu's home as scheduled. But when he opens the crate, she bounces back in shock. Incidentally, she has met him beforehand when she filled in as a food conveyance young lady. The experience was extremely terrible as Min-kyu had to go out leaving without paying her, but truly he was simply attempting to keep away from actual contact with her. Shocked, Min-kyu promptly calls the teacher requests to know what's going on. Fortunately, the last option makes up a story that a He-3 has 2 modes: functional and companion mode. She more behaves like a human. The robot is currently in companion mode, however it tends to be changed to functional mode by squeezing the reset button. The credulous Min-kyu promptly trusts it and presses the button behind the robot's neck to reboot. After Jia gets back to business as usual, Min-kyu chooses to lead a knowledge test on her. Just then, the lab power gets cut off, bringing about Jia's terrible absolute association with the He-3 framework. Presently, she needs to depend on herself, but her level of intelligence is just 94. From the start, Jia is approached to open a box, whose secret word must be found by settling a complicated math at 2 in no less than 3 minutes. Clearly she doesn't know math, so she basically tears the container open, which shocks Min-kyu. Then, she is approached to strip an egg without utilizing apparatuses in 10 seconds or less. Having worked eateries already, she effectively finishes the task. Min-kyu is truly dazzled, so he adulates the robot for being shrewd and imaginative. Jia, who has never been adulated for being shrewd, tenderly grins. In the meantime, the lab power likewise gets back on. In any case, when they associate with Jia's lenses, they are stunned to see her hollering at Min-kyu. She blames him for being a degenerate. It turns out Jia is offended to find him gazing at her chest, which he notes is greater than it was the day before. He needs to free her up to check the battery pack, and stretches out his hand to her chest. The teacher drops to his knees with dismay, and is scarcely ready to answer when Min-kyu phones. Who are you attempting to trick at this moment? Min-kyu requests. In any case, they are feeling significantly better when he just blames them for utilizing modest batteries, making a He-3's chest grow up. Hong falters for some time and lies that he essentially redesigned a He-3's battery pack. He likewise cautions Min-Kyu to not touch her chest. In the wake of hanging up, Min-Kyu continues to have his medication, yet he abruptly gags. He drops on the floor and begins to shake, yet luckily Ji-ah helps him by tapping his back. As Min-Kyu returns to his detects, he gazes at the robot with amazement. When he asks why she helped him with no orders, Ji-ah answers that she can do numerous things. After this, the two have actual contact. Interestingly, yet shockingly, Min-Kyu encounters no unfavorably susceptible response. At long last, by the day's end, Ji-ah is taken back to the lab. Professor Hong reproves her since she was practically uncovered. Yet Ji-ah irritated on the grounds that she accepts that she worked effectively. Disappointed that she never gets appreciated, she stomps out of the spot. Before long, the teacher gets terrible news that the unique part they'd requested for He-3's maintenance was erroneously shipped off Africa and it is presently essentially weeks away. To exacerbate the situation, Min-Kyu likewise calls him at that careful second, and uncovers his longing to take a He-3's for a month. He needs to find out about the robot and make it completely practical as per his necessities. Left without any choices, the teacher calls Ji-ah once more and solicitations her to camouflage as the robot for a few additional weeks. This time, he lauds her and offers a considerably bigger totals, in light of which she concurs immediately. Then, Professor Hong makes sense of that from now onwards, until the genuine He-3's gets repaired, Ji-ah should work at the house and consistently. She will be gotten back to the lab for re-energizing. Tragically, the exceptionally following day at work, Ji-ah encounters an explosive's loose bowels. She attempts to hold it in, however unintentionally flatulates. Confused, Min-Kyu asks what's that sound, to which the robot answers, "You fart, my lord." Before long, the smell spreads around the house, so she recommends he change garments. The simple Min-Kyu accepts her since there's no other person aside from them, so he leaves. Making the most of the open door, Ji-ah races to the latrine to crap. Nonetheless, Min-Kyu returns early, and observes that robot is absent. He searches for her around the house, and at last tracks down her, splashing his costly fragrance in the toilet. Ji-ah professes to clean the latrine, but Min-Kyu doesn't accept her, guaranteeing that robots can't contact water. However, she lies that she is a high-level man-made intelligence who is capable at washing dishes. When Min-Kyu is going to leave, he finds that Ji-ah's face is sweat-soaked. He attempts to move toward her, however coincidentally steps on a cleanser and slips. Ji-ah races to Min-Kyu, however rather than saving him, she gets the scent, all things considered. Unfortunately, she lands right on top of him, harming his ribs as a result of her iron plate. That night when Ji-ah is cleaning, she thumps down a card palace that Min-Kyu has ordered for a considerable length of time. Witnessing this situation unfold, Min-Kyu shouts in anguish. However, before he can say much else, Ji-ah says that her battery has reached 5% and claims to be in backup mode. He later meets the teacher saying that he's baffled with her mistakes, but the teacher advises him to give her additional opportunity to profound learn. Min-Kyu consents to give a He-3 additional time. The following day, Min-Kyu illuminates to see a guest and cautions Ji-ah not to come outside. It is Riel, his most memorable love. Anyway, his energy before long goes to horror when Riel contacts his shoulder. Min-Kyu keeps his face turned away and figures out how to conceal his spreading rash from Riel. He then claims to have a significant gathering and surges back to the house. Somehow, he stumbles to his untouchable room and goes after the counteractant needle. Yet since he is excessively feeble, he neglects to get them. By the time Ji-ah finds him, Min-Kyu has imploded on the floor, struggling to relax. All of a sudden, the scene streaks back to when everything was typical for Min-Kyu. Back to the times when he didn't an aversion to human touch. Little Min-Kyu's folks cheer him on as he fabricates his absolute first place of cards. At the point when it overturns down, father pursues away his failure with some cool card tricks. In one more memory, everyone accumulates for Min-Kyu's birthday celebration. On the commute home, the whole family plays word games. But, unfortunately, as father moves his window, one of the birthday swell get in to his face and their vehicle gets found out in the way of an approaching truck. Min-Kyu next awakens in hospital, sobbing for his folks, both of whom were killed in the accident. During the day, a few family members visit him and attempt to be his to his face and their vehicle gets found out in the way of an approaching truck. Min-Kyu next awakens in hospital, sobbing for his folks, both of whom were killed in the accident. During the day, a few family members visit him and attempt to be his lawful watchman. The primary intention is to acquire his folks' cash. Yet when Min-kyu enters the restroom and checks his pockets, he finds a secretive message which peruses "Don't sign anything." Sometime thereafter a companion of his named Yoo companion's hand to give him support. Yet, when Min-kyu peers down he sees Yoo-chul's hand transform into massive hooks. Panicked, Min-kyu takes off shouting, while odd rankles begin shaping on his hands where Yoo-chul contacted him. Sooner or later, Yoo-chul gets back to his dad and hands him over the reception papers saying that the undertakings has been completed. But when the dad goes through the last page, he sees bastard written instead of Min-kyu's mark. Sooner or later, Yoo-chul gets back to his dad and hands him over the reception papers saying that the undertakings has been completed. But when the dad goes through the last page, he sees bastard written instead of Min-kyu's mark. Different people, hence bringing about the sensitivity. To exacerbate matter, as he grows up, nobody realizes about his sensitivity with the exception of his own PCP. Back in the present, Min-kyu shocks alert with Ji-ah close to him. He tells her that he was longing for individuals betraying him. But he's shocked to observe that he's to count ordinary condition, with not so much as an imprint on him. Subsequently, he crushes Ji-ah cheeks, apparently thankful that she gave him the infusion. As their relationship develops, Ji-ah and Min-kyu hang out and draw much more nearer. At some point, Min-kyu requests that she go with him out on the town with Riel. The date doesn't go too well, and as Riel stands to leave, she proposes that they shake hands as companions. Reluctantly Min-kyu grasps her hand, which brings about his sensitivity kicking in. Before long, he begins having worked breathing, and when he gets his needle, he is trapped into psyche regardless of whether to involve it as he is fed up with his hopeless life. All of a sudden, his smartwatch begins signaling quicker, and he at last drops the needle. Luckily, Ji-ah shows up and carries him to his detects. She sits close to him and when Min-kyu takes a gander at her, his response reduces and the screen gets back to business as usual. Maybe he is totally recuperated, even without the needle. Not long after, the two choose to get once again to the condo, however when they are turning a corner, Min-kyu coincidentally crashes into a landscaper and tumbles down. The last option promptly snatches Min-kyu to check assuming that he is okay, however shockingly, the sensitivities don't kick in. Seeing this, he attempts to test himself by joining enormous groups, something he has never finished in 15 years. Later as the two endeavor out, a kid knocks Min-kyu's hand, however once more, nothing occurs. Then, the two join a group to watch open-air execution where Min-kyu bounces when the individual close to him snatches his hand for the wave. A check of his screen shows that everything is great. Subsequently Min-kyu's eyes load up with tears and he delicately says "I'm at long last relieved." Following this he strolls to a calm spot and calls his own primary care physician, Dr. Gracious. However, when he is mournfully admitting that his sensitivity is gone, a bystander catches him, making his screen signal insatiably. In the interim, Ji-ah begins searching for Min-kyu, and when the two meet the latter's beat dials back, and his rashes begins to vanish. Min-kyu takes a gander at her in shock and 2 or 3 blocks his view, his side effects return. When Dr. Dado inquires as to whether there anybody nearby, Min-kyu concedes, "Somebody is here." At the point when I see somebody the rashes disappear. And when I don't see anybody, the rashes return. Anyway as Ji-ah grins and waves, Min-kyu mournful concedes, "It's anything but a person." After hanging up the call, Min-kyu embraces Ji-ah and tells her it was on the grounds that you were close by. He vows to purchase the universe's longest enduring batteries for her, and even proceeds to express "Remain with me perpetually, until I pass on. You're currently my most valuable fortune." As Ji-ah gazes in dismay, Tae close by Swarm begins rooting for the two, provoking Min-kyu to kiss her on the brow. Back home, Min-kyu demands to Dr. Ho that despite the fact that he had contact with many individuals, he's completely fine. He then, at that point, remains before his full-length mirrors while he holds up his telephone to check his case. Dr. Ho is astonished that without precedent, for quite a long while, Min-kyu hasn't needed drug after human contact. He explains that it was a direct result of the robot that has been with Min-kyu for the beyond 10 days and calls it a marvel. Then, he tells Min-kyu to list all that occurred since the robot showed up so they can sort out how he was cured. Over the course of the following couple of days, a few examinations are led. Every one of them bring up that Min-kyu will be fine with people as long as the robot Ji-ah is with him. Thus, he takes her with him at whatever point he needs to meet somebody and considers her as the most important resource he claims. Meanwhile, the AHE-3 robot is at last fixed. It can work ordinarily, yet will demand an investment to adjust and make the change smooth. Professor Hong claims that he will require more days before AHE-3 Profound learns and prepare. Jia, who has begun becoming accustomed to her new life, is miserable about the news. One day, Min-kyu takes Jia to an extravagant restaurant, but causes her to sit alone at a different table. Then, at that point, he energetically invites Riel and her dad. As the three cooperate, an obviously vexed Jia looks on. Inevitably, when Min-kyu comes to gather her, she disregards his hand and leaves all alone. This happens for some time. Min-kyu is protected just when Jia is near, however one day everything changes. At the point when he is separated from everyone else, Min-kyu maneuvers into a corner store and opens his trunk where charge cards and money are prepared. At the point when the chaperone returns his card, he brushes against Min-kyu's fingers, yet the last option too diverted to even think about seeing and essentially drives away. In any case, soon after a couple of moments, he understands that he contacted orderly's hand and really takes a look at himself for a rash. Surprisingly, Min-kyu don't tracks down anything, and his screen likewise shows that is typical, despite the fact that he's separated from everyone else. So he organizes a gathering with his own primary care physician. On coming to the hospital, Min-kyu embraces a puzzled Dr. Oh, and says thanks to him for his diligent effort throughout the previous 15 years, demonstrating that he has been at long last relieved totally. After he quiets down, the specialist asks assuming something made him cheerful, and Min-kyu answers that he at long last grasps love. True to form, Dr. Oh accepts that Min-kyu is discussing Riel, so he recommends that he additionally thank He3. Then, at that point, he tells Min-kyu that he can send He3 away now, making sense of that Min-kyu became joined to the robot since she was his first companion in quite a while. In any case, now that he's restored thoroughly, he can get additional satisfaction from a connection to a human. Min-kyu fights that He3 settled on him happy, but Dr. Oh decisions that a deception he needs Min-kyu to encounter the dash of somebody he genuinely adores. That night, discouraged Min-kyu approaches teacher Hong, and uncovers that he is enamored with the robot I-3. Hong finds it justifiable that Min-kyu has become fixated on the first companion he made in quite a while. The person who is likewise answerable for his cure. Min-kyu that trusts that He3 causes him to feel invigorated, however teacher Wong advises him that they are discussing a robot, which was pre-programmed. Hearing this, Min-kyu concedes that he is going off the deep end. And with mournful eyes, he asks the teacher for the arrangement. The next day, Wong comes to Min-kyu and tells that they're one way. He recommends that they reset He3 as along these lines, she will fail to remember all that, and assist him with continuing on. Min-kyu is crushed, however he realizes that this is the main way. Sometime thereafter, Jia additionally hears the news. Devastated, she takes on the appearance of He3 for one final time. The following time we see her, she stand before Min-kyu in his home as snow falls outside. He go for sure for a stroll for one final time and gets back to the chateau. They at last face one another, and Min-kyu tells her that the things he showed her today are portions of the day-to-day existence she rewarded him following 15 years. Min-kyu then says thanks to her for being such countless things to him, counting his companion and his fix-em, and apologizes once more. Jia battles to keep down her tears as she communicates how grateful and sorry she is too. She just expectations that he can be blissful before long. Min-kyu gazes at her, and as a tear falls, he figures out how to tranquilly arrange He3 into activity mode. After this, he reports that he's going to reset her, prompting Jia to help him that all to remember their recollections will be for all time erased. Regardless of this, Min-kyu consents to continue. Yet before he can press the button, he takes out his mom's accessory and spots it around Jia's neck. He then embraces her and raises a ruckus around town prior to contributing his last message, "I love you." As Jia strats the commencement to the reset, Min-kyu surrenders to his tears and holds her firmly. When she comes to one, she at long last allows a tear to fall. Back in the tab, the genuine He3 reports that Min-kyu's envelope has been deleted. That night Min-kyu and Jia weep late into the night in their particular homes. Jia cries such a lot of that she becomes sick the next morning, says taken to the clinics because of extreme parchedness, and there we see that she is as yet wearing Min-kyu's necklace. As they continue on with their plans for his wedding with Riel. At some point, Min-kyu gets on the train, where he runs into a recognizable face. She is, in all honesty, Jia, who Min-kyu accepts as his ex-robot. They don't utter a word. Jia is under severe request to not respond with him, while Min-kyu is distrustful on the off chance that she actually a robot or not. Burning through no time, Min-kyu calls teacher Wong to ask how he concocted He3's face. Wong uncovers that he made the robot on somebody he knew, which looks like her face, character, propensities, etc. Min-kyu contemplates whether it is feasible to communicate with her, and Wong says okay. Notwithstanding, He attests that he should does. So things don't get abnormal between the two. In spite of the exhortation, Min-kyu follows her the entire way to her grandmother's shop and offers to visit with her. However, she utilizes the reasons that she is presently occupied. In any case, being the obstinate man that he is, Min's still up in the air to sit tight for her. In the meantime, Jia hustles into the kitchen and removes the jewelry around her neck and conceals it in a plate. Presently occupied. In any case, being the obstinate man that he is, Min still up in the air to sit tight for her. In the meantime, Jia hustles into the kitchen and removes the jewelry around her neck and conceals it in a plate. Yet Jia cautions him to disappear or probably she will call the police. Be that as it may, Min-kyu keenly inquires as to whether she has an accessible room. And to Jia's horror, the old woman says okay, and allows him to remain for the evening. For the following couple of days, he bonds with grandmother, which likewise gets Jia's attention, reminding her experience with him. One evening, grandmother asks Jia to get products from a stockroom. In any case, since it's as of now dull, she asks Min-kyu to go with her. Reluctantly, Jia drives him to the spot. During the journey, they take a gander at one another's countenances and recall the past. Soon, Jia fires opening up, and they talk as far as possible until they arrives at the distribution center. Yet, as they are getting the necessary products, tragically, somebody locks the entryway, ignorant that two individuals are still inside. Left with no decision, the couple is compelled to go through the night inside, where they begin holding significantly more. The following day, somebody at last opens the stockroom entryway, and sees the couple snoozing close to one another. Subsequent to awakening, they return to grandmother's store and help her with cooking. At a certain point, Min-kyu nearly recognizes the neckband, however before that, Jia again conceals it. The following day, Min-kyu again shows up at the cafe, yet discovers that Jia currently left miserable. He searches for her all over the place, until he tracks down her by the dock. Seeing him, Jia rapidly covers her jewelry, yet it's past the point of no return. Along these lines, Min-kyu begins thinking back about the last day when he was with. He searches for her all over the place, until he tracks down her by the dock. Seeing him, Jia rapidly covers her jewelry, yet it's past the point of no return. Along these lines, Min-kyu begins thinking back about the last day when he was with. He 3. Understanding that he was misled, he becomes enraged. But not long before he can say something, his sensitivity reappears, and the marker shows red, something which has never occurred. In the last scene, he tumbles to the ground hopelessly, with